Coach, you mentioned in the presser earlier this week that it's kind of tough playing a team 2 times in 2 weeks. They make adjustments. It's harder than it seems. What adjustments did you see them make from their first matchup tonight, and how did the team respond?
Yeah, I think the biggest changes were the personnel changes. Getting a couple guys back, 40 and 3. I think helped them. And then in the game, I think 77 got hurt, so we saw more of 11 and 43. So it's definitely like a different feel to the game in a lot of ways. And 3 running more through the midfield. And he's super fast, as you can tell. Played midfield last year and then has played attack this year. So that definitely, I thought, gave them a shot in the arm on that end. They were without a couple guys on the defensive end, but I thought all in all, like they still do a good job down there. So, that's the hard thing, is trying to get a sense of like what will they do different. And so you're trying to kind of work with the guys on hypotheticals, like, all right, they could do this, they could do that, yet still got to prepare for the things we've seen. So, but just knowing, Scott does such a good job. Scotty B does one of the best young coaches out there, and does a great job in the pick game, and just very creative guy. Did a great job at Michigan, and he's going to do a fine job at Rutgers. So, but I thought all in all, I thought the guys did fine. It's fourth quarter, a little spotty there at times, so definitely some things you want to clean up. Giving up 5 there, and then 4 in the second quarter. Some self-inflicted wounds that we just got to clean up. But I thought in the 6-on-6, I thought our guys did a good job. And just knew long possessions, and you just got to stay focused for 80 seconds.
Did the weather have any factor today?
I wouldn't say that. I'd say yes. I think there definitely were some like sloppy balls on both teams. I'm not sure that either team benefited, but I think it definitely impacted some stuff. Whether it was, whether guys trusted the ability to maybe make some throws, or just some balls like being a little errant. So it definitely was something that when we looked at the weather report early in the week, we just kind of talked to the guys. I'll be honest, I was kind of hoping that we'd get like a couple rainy days just to mirror it, because we just haven't had a lot of rain recently. But I thought the guys handled it fine. You kind of saw early on it was kind of sloppy, but again, all in all, Big Ten games, they're going to be rock fights, so just find a way and move on.
So Leo, you see their goalie now, you're in close proximity, a couple weeks apart. What do you take from the first game to the second game, or is it really just totally a new game shooting against him?
Yeah,
great goalie.
He's one of the best in the country. We talked about him all week, and obviously leading up to last game. I think the mindset obviously is similar, but more about shooting our best shots and kind of varying up and watching what each other's doing throughout the game and adjusting based off that. Obviously, like I said, he's one of the best in the country, one of the best in the conference, so tons of respect to him, but it's more for us just kind of adjusting and seeing what each other's doing and shooting off that.
Leo, similar question. It seemed like you guys had a lot of success from the wings, taking crossbody shots into the upper half of the net. Was that something you guys saw on film, or just something that you saw in the game? Or
yeah, I think that was just something we adjusted to. It wasn't necessarily something we saw on film. It was just more something we adjusted to, and obviously a lot of guys made some really great plays, so credit to them.
Mikey, when the defense was humming, you guys had some really quick doubles. You rotated back well, and then there were a lot of sticks getting the passing lane. What brought that extra burst of energy?
Well, honestly, it's just from the fact that they kind of have really nothing to lose. So they're kind of going all out on the dodges, and they get themselves in positions where we can take advantage of their spacing and dodging ability. So a lot of it was them kind of pushing transition and pushing on the dodges, trying to get a slide or draw a slide. And because it's a little bit wet, it's hard to kind of roll around super fast and get the ball out. So we kind of clamped a certain number of opportunities, and then again, like with the rain, sometimes throwing those skip balls are a little bit difficult.
Coach, how big is it for Brian Rupel to make his first 7 saves? Because your defense was really good to start the game, and how does that impact it?
Yeah, I thought he started super hot tonight, and I thought that was huge for us because he kind of bailed us out early, and offensively, kind of look, we get 14 shots in the first, and really, we get one right off the get-go off of face-off, and then we get the one at the very end, and Trevor throws it, and then everything in between, we just didn't can shots, and I thought we had actually some decent looks. So that's the type of stuff like we'll go back to and just kind of try to clean up and work on. Again, given where we are, like you know, you got to can those opportunities. You know, we get 13 extra face-off wins. You know, and it's a 3-goal game, so definitely some things that I think we can get better at. Happy that we won. I'm proud of the guys, but definitely some stuff that you know, we can learn from and we need to be better at, certainly for Thursday.
And then Leo, for you guys on offense, how big is it finding a rhythm when you're dominating face-offs like that?
Yeah, I mean, the face-off guys do a great job. Defense does a great job letting us settle into the game. Like you said, Brian had first 7 saves. That gives us a lot of confidence, you know, knowing that they're going to make the stops on their end. And obviously, Dodge and Jonah have been killing it all year. So it gives us a lot of confidence knowing, you know, we're going to keep getting the ball and keep getting opportunities and getting to be able to get into a flow based on them. And they give us a lot of confidence on both sides of the ball, defense and offense.
This question's for Coach and Leo. Eric Spanos tonight, 2 goals, season high 3 assists. When he's really thriving as a scorer and a passer, what does that do for the offense?
Yeah, I just think it, you know, when he, much like the other guys, when the ball's popping, we're much better. You know, he's a good passer. Obviously, he's a capable shooter, but I think the more we can just kind of keep the ball humming, good spacing, you know, and get some slides and then try to see if there's some opportunities. I think that's when this group really thrives. I thought we struggled a little bit early. Maybe it was just the footing or whatever it may be. But then at times I thought the guys did a good job, especially a couple of those in the third where Elijah got a slide, threw it down, threw it back inside. Like we definitely had some good ones, but definitely some things that we'll get together tomorrow and clean up.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Eric's one of the best players in the country. So seeing him start play with more confidence and kind of have our offense kind of flowing a little bit has been awesome. You know, obviously, like I said, he's been starting to get going a little bit, and that's been really helpful for our offense. You know, he's really selfless, and you saw that today with a lot of the passes he made, and a lot of the simple plays too he made, not just necessarily the points he had up on the board.
So Mikey and Leo, this might be the only time we get the 2 of the 3 guys from Yale. After going through a full season here in the Big Ten, into the playoffs, you know, what's the difference between Ivy League kind of play and Big Ten play? Come on, you had to know it's coming.
Yeah. I would say that they're both super competitive. So I would say that obviously here he does a good job of explaining like that rock fight. The scores are typically much lower. I know like in our past experiences with Yale, like we would play teams and it would be, you know, teams would be dropping 20 goals consistently, and it was that shootout lacrosse. But again, like super competitive. Like I would say that here there's a big like a lot of focus on the defensive end that I would say like, you know, on sometimes the Ivy League, and he can obviously attest more to it. Like the whole offensive scheme is like super big, a lot of crafty guys. But again, they're both super competitive. So it's just a little bit of a different rock fight versus shootout. So that's like the best way I could describe it.
Yeah, I think you put it perfectly. I mean, a lot of the Ivy League teams like to play up tempo and kind of rely on that transition stuff, and so that kind of leads to a lot of the higher scoring games. But I think Tony put it perfectly. Or sorry, Mikey.
Well, that's what they call me.
Sorry about that. But yeah, no, I mean he put it perfectly. I don't know the better way to describe it than that.
And I thought Chris played well tonight. He had a couple big goals. I don't know where we'd be without those 3. They've been great. Just great in the locker room, fitting in well. They're really good people. We kind of felt we had that figured out, and they've been even better than we could imagine. So super glad we had the year with them for sure.
Well, this one's for Tony then. Can you talk about the offense to defense when you see those middies and AJ Larkin explode in the offensive end? How does that look from where you are, and who's given that signal to ignite that type of rush?
I mean, Larkin's obviously a special player, so when he gets out and, you know, he gets that ball, like, full faith in him to kind of make the right decision. Obviously, he's great at shooting. He puts a lot of time in. You know, we trust him as a defense to, you know, make a play, and that's, like, what we want. And a lot of times, you know, we get a stop. Group's been playing great, so he gets a stop and we can get it out. You know, that's the way we could spark transition and maybe get one that, you know, he scores and it kind of sucks the life out of the other team. You know, that's a goal where, you know, you make a play and it's like that swings the whole momentum in our favor. And we, you know, I know Pete and Riley and I love to see that stuff. So.
Oh, listen, if there was like an alley-oop, like almost like towards the end, it was like almost like an alley-oop pass that created on that goal. How do you feel about that did that swing momentum give you guys more confidence?
Yeah, I
Second
mean,
half.
that was like what was it, a 60-yard pass that, you know, the defenseman was obviously on Rutgers. I think he was like trying to check down on Spanos. Spanos saw him throw the ball and like kind of undercut it. And again, like to get a goal like that, you know, it does swing the momentum. Whether, you know, obviously they're not trying to give that up, but for us to get that, you know, that's huge.
I will ask the Maryland type question, which now you have a short week, and you talk about your preparation constantly. What's the change in going from playing on a Saturday to a Thursday from what your regular week looks like?
Yeah, we'll meet tomorrow and start that prep. So we started a little bit earlier. Having already played somebody, you're a lot more familiar with them. They're more familiar with you. So I don't know. It's funny. I talked to some people, and listen, you would always like take the 1 or 2 seed in any sport. But you know, talking to people this week, you know, they're like, you know, sometimes you have that week off and you're out of rhythm, and you know, these guys are just used to playing every weekend, and all of a sudden you don't do that. We've had times where we had that bye and we didn't play well. Certainly, you know, Penn State's super talented. They're as good as anybody we've seen. So we'll have to have a good few days of prep and just make sure we rest these guys up and make sure we balance the prep with recovery because it'll be huge. And obviously, you know, everybody's going up there to hopefully get a W, but we got to just make sure that we prepare them the right way. This week was really weird with the weather. It got hot a couple days. And we just haven't been used to it. And, you know, the guys get out there and it's like, you know, they're huffing and puffing, and understandably so. But, you know, you're also like, all right, well, we don't want to go too hard and crush these guys and not be prepared and not have legs on Saturday. Because you knew what was at stake, and you knew Rutgers, listen, a lot to play for. You know, they win this to get a home game, right? So, again, so we knew they'd be a tough out. And, you know, Brian does a great job with that group, and they got tough kids. So, again, we got to do a good job this week of just balancing, you know, the recovery and then the prep. So, but again, having played them, and there are some guys that didn't play in that last game, so that'll be stuff to prep with. But we got a good group, and they're pretty dialed in. So I'm optimistic these guys will do a good job.